have a question. Have you ever said, I want to become the best version of myself? Have you thought, that's all I want to do? I just want to be better. What if, in saying that, you're waiting for a version of yourself that actually doesn't exist? You know, I hear people say that all the time, and there's a idea that there's a version of us that's finally fearless, that's finally confident and healed. There's a version that finally, is more disciplined, is spiritual. There's a version that's finally ready, right? And this feeling is that this version is like out there, and I'm gonna get there someday. But what if that version is not the doorway into your life? What if the doorway is this version of you right now, this version of me right now, the one who's still becoming, the one who still gets angry, the one who still gets triggered, the one who has thoughts of fear and doubt and worry and lack and desire and grief? What if that version, this version, exactly as we are, what if there's no better version of us? And that the version that we are, who we are right now, the one that has all the parts that are still messy and unfinished and human, that's the doorway. That's the doorway to the life of freedom that we want. It's not about healing, really, because there's this idea that I have to heal and then I can finally live. Does anybody feel that? If I heal, then I'll really be living. When I'm really not feeling not enough anymore, when I really don't overreact, when I don't have any more compulsive behaviors, then I'll be living. Right now, I'm, this broken version of myself. But this is what I want to talk to you about today. And this is one of the things that we do. The other thing I want to talk to you about today is rythmia, because, this talk, Walking the Path, is under the auspices of rythmia, this beautiful place that I've had the great privilege of working for the last 9 years. And I've gotten to see how, people come there wanting to fix something, and they leave there accepting themselves just that they are. It's really more about self-acceptance than it is about transformation, because the idea of transforming something is, even people that say, of course I want to do shadow work, and I want to love the shadow in. But we're really saying, I want to love the shadow in so it can stop being so messy, so it can stop embarrassing me, so it can stop not being spiritual enough, or not being healed enough, or not being smart enough. Whatever the shadow is, we want to love it in so it can change and stop bothering us. That's not loving the shadow. That's just a dressed up version of the fix yourself trap. That's the fix yourself trap. That's the I'm broken trap wearing mala beads, right? It's like the version of us that's like, I'm just more spiritual. So instead of saying, I fear about the future, I say, well, I'm trusting that all is working out. Okay, great. Yeah, absolutely. But how about actually including the fear? Last night in the spiritual recalibration circle, we completed our June session, and it was called All of Me Belongs: Pride, Joy, and the Sacred Yes. And yes, this is Pride Month. So, pride is not about the 7 deadly sins. Pride is about not apologizing for who you are. So everybody could use some pride. You know what I mean? And if you've been following Walking the Path this last month, we've been doing some really deep work. We first started looking at the parts that we exile, all the ways that we push parts away from us that aren't acceptable, that don't fit the version. And then we looked at how the body becomes a place of comparison that furthers that sense of things that we need to fix and exile. And then we looked at, in week 3 of Walking the Path, we looked at dancing with the parts. We looked at dancing with all of these parts, that it's not about getting rid of my fear, getting rid of my jealousy, getting rid of anything. It's not about getting rid of anything. It's about having a new relationship with everything. If you think about it, are you all familiar with the hero's journey? There's a part in the hero's journey called the Nekia, the night journey. And this is after the hero's already been bested, right? The hero or heroine's already lost to the monster, to the opponent. And now they got to go back. And the hero doesn't say, okay, you know what, finally, after they bested me and I've lost, I now I'm confident enough, now I'm certain enough, now I have everything in order, so now I can go kick ass. The hero says, I don't think I can do it. I'm afraid I'm going to die, but I'm going anyway. That's kind of what I'm talking about. You know, it's like I'm not exiling the fear. I'm not exiling not enoughness. I'm welcoming it in exactly as it is. What if we really did that? What if we really welcomed the worst parts of us, the parts that we don't want anybody else to see, the parts that are so firewalled off between fear and shame and guilt? What if we accepted those parts in without trying to change them? Well, the fear then is, well, those parts are going to take over and it'll take over the acceptable self. And then I'll just be this awful, dark part of me that I don't want anymore. That's the fear. That's the thought. But the truth is, the more we exile those parts, the more power they have, the more dark they get, the more scary they get. And then all of a sudden we're standing in front of this wall of demons that's really just our human emotions. So the idea is real shadow work without fixing is allowing like all of that and still moving forward. Like, do you remember the movie Inside Out? It was a great movie. It felt more like a documentary, actually. But remember, everybody wanted to get rid of sadness. Everybody wanted to exile sadness. Everything would be just fine if we could just be in joy all the time. But what happened when we exiled sadness? Shit went wrong. And so sadness wasn't the problem. Exiling sadness was the problem. That's the point with all of this. Your compulsive behaviors aren't the problem. My addiction, my overreactiveness, my not enoughness, my name the thing isn't the problem. It's my exiling of it that's the problem. You know? So it's like healing is not the whole point. Healing is not the point. Becoming available to life, to the life that wants to express through us, is the point. And sometimes I can get so committed to healing that healing becomes more of a place to hide. I think, once I've healed myself, I create. Once I'm more confident, then I can share my voice. Once I've worked through all my patterns, then I can let myself be seen. Once my body changes, then, I can feel proud. Once I become the more polished version of me, the more acceptable, the more spiritual, the more evolved, the best version of me, then I will fully live. But that's not what life is about. That just kind of keeps life out of reach constantly. I'm not quite there yet. Oh yeah, I know I'm perfect, whole, and complete, but if I do this tomorrow, I'll be even more perfect, whole, and complete. Because I'm writing a book. I'm not writing the book from my perfected, polished self. I started it that way, and then I realized that voice sucks. Who wants to listen to that guy? Sounds like he fucking knows it all. I started writing from the version from me. The part that has all these contradictory voices, the part that knows that God is all there is and the universe has my back and I have nothing to fear, and the part that's scared shitless that I'm not going to have enough, the part that knows that there's no comparison, that I'm incomparable, that I'm sui generis, I'm one of a kind, there's no need to compare myself to anybody, and the part that feels so left behind, so scared, so out of the mainstream when I see somebody else succeeding, the part that's jealous and envious. Yeah, all of it. All of it. That's actually integration and allowing them to be just as they are. And this is the part of me this is the part that I'm talking about that's really the heart of pride, right? Pride is not perfection. It's not arrogance. It's not, look at me. It's not superiority. Pride is not pretending that we have no work left to do. Like, okay, once I have no work left to do, then I can, go out, share myself. But pride is really the sacred ending of self-abandonment. It's stopping apologizing for our existence. Stopping apologizing for who we are right now, just as we are, with all the flaws, with all the everything, all the cracks, Pride says, I don't need to hide myself to feel safe. I don't need to silence my creativity to be accepted. I don't need to become someone else to be worthy of love. I can live from my whole self. And the whole self doesn't mean just the polished self that's always happy and joyful and knowing that the universe has their back and full of love and light. No, my whole self is all of me. The part that's dark, the kind of kinky part, the desirous part, the joyful part, the loving part, the son and the daddy, baby. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. So, oops. So, yeah, all of it matters. The whole self. The whole self. Like, how many of us are hiding the parts that we're embarrassed by? How many are hiding the parts that feel tender, the angry parts, the grieving parts, the desirous parts, the parts that don't fit this identity that we want to maintain? This is really, it takes energy. It takes energy to pretend. It takes energy to create the acceptable version of ourselves and then leave it, maintain it. It takes energy to keep other parts away and only present this part. That's a lot of energy. And what would happen if we allowed everybody to come in without trying to change the parts? How much more creative energy would be freed up? How much more energy happens when we're not spending all of my life force hiding parts of me? Now, this doesn't mean that, full disclosure. It just means that I'm actually accepting those parts. I'm actually, allowing myself to bring these parts that feel dark, that feel heavy, that feel secret into my conscious awareness and to walk this pattern, to walk this path with all of me, not dragging the ugly part behind like, I don't want it, and just walking forward with this polished self. It doesn't mean that every desire, every grief, every fear gets to be like, wisdom. However, it does mean that every part of you, every part of me gets to be brought into the field of love. No part stays outside of the field of love, because if God is all there is, then there's no part of you, no part of me that is outside of that divine love. So, this is really sacred work. Not every part is pretty. Not every part is polished. Not every part is ready for prime time, but every part is ready to stop being exiled from our own heart. And just to say, this part is here. This part is here. I don't know how to relate to it. I don't know how to relate to this aspect of me. I've been beating the crap out of it for the most of my life, but I'm at least, so I don't know how to relate. I don't know how to bring this in and let it be there without trying to change it. That's honest. I don't know how to do that, but I'm willing to stop trying to kick you out. That's the first move. I don't know how to relate to you. Fear, abandonment, rejection, perversion, sadness, grief, reactivity, the part that doesn't feel seen. I don't know how to relate to you. I don't, but I'm willing to stop trying to exile you and see what happens. Something will shift. Something will shift. The body will soften. The heart will open. Something in you will exhale because you finally accepted the part of you that you haven't been able to accept. And then creative energy begins to move, Pride is really saying, look how much of myself I'm willing to love. Look how much of myself I'm willing to include. This is really pride. Because sometimes the spiritual path can create this polished identity, the loving one, the wise one, the kind one, the forgiving one, the regulated one, the conscious one, the one that's done all the work, the one that has all the answers. I feel that pressure all the time. And those are all beautiful qualities. But to be living only from those parts isn't true. And to have a sense that I will arrive someday at some best version of myself is a lie. Nobody has no blind spots. Nobody has done all the work. Nobody. Ever. Enlightenment is not, I have all the answers and I'm the polished version. There's a great story about a rickshaw driver and a guru. And they die, they get hit and they die and they go to, I think, is it Kali that's the god of death? I can't remember, but they go to, let's say Kali. They go to Kali, and the guru's talking to Kali, and he's like, I'm enlightened, right? That was my last life. I'm done. I'm not going back there, right? And Kali goes, no, actually, you've got 3 more lives until you're enlightened. And the guru's like, that's crazy. I did everything. There's no way. I'm not going back. I want a review. And while he's talking and arguing with Kali, the rickshaw driver goes, excuse me. And they go, yes. And he goes, how many more lives do I have until I'm enlightened? And and they both look at the rickshaw driver, and the guy, and Kali says, you see that tree over there? As many leaves are on that tree are as many lives as it will take for you to be enlightened. And the rickshaw driver goes, oh, good. And they go, what are you happy about, dude? And he goes, well, at least one day I will be enlightened. And in that moment, he was enlightened. It had nothing to do with how many lives he had left and all this stuff. It only, thank you, Selena. It only, Yamaraj, is that the god of death, the Hindu god of death? Thank you, Yamaraj. Had nothing to do with how polished he was, how advanced he was, how healed he was, how enlightened he was. It had to do with him accepting himself. That's it. Accepting everything just the way it is. I started this talk by saying it's more about acceptance than it is about transformation. It's more about accepting the darkest, ugliest, scariest parts of us. And they're only dark and ugly and scary because we've been exiling them and they look really scary. It's more about accepting those parts without trying to change them and let them just be, and to be honest enough to know I don't even know how to do that. But in that tension, when you bring everything together, if there's parts of the family that aren't talking, and you sit them down at the table and they're like, I ain't talking to her. It's like, okay, no problem. You don't have to talk to anybody, but we're going to sit at this table together. Eventually, something's going to happen. Eventually, the tension of them sitting there will cause something to happen. And that's what happens when we allow all of the parts of us in, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the parts that we've labeled dark and mean and scary, and the good parts and the evolved parts, and just bring it all in, sit them down at the table. And you don't have to talk to each other, but you ain't going. And you don't have to change, and you don't have to change. Nobody has to change. What's going to happen is a transcendence. You will transcend the either or monotautological one way of thinking mentality. It will transcend it, and it will be a completely new way of seeing. I almost said version. A completely new way of seeing. A completely new perspective will emerge, and it'll be completely unique. It'll be a complete surprise, and it'll be completely and authentically you. So I think that's it. That's our talk. The shadow is not the enemy. The body is not the problem. There is no problem. Maybe the only problem is that we're exiling parts of ourselves. And this is not about changing anything. It's not about fixing anything. It's not about transforming anything. It's simply about accepting exactly what's so. And in that moment, just like the rickshaw driver, we would be enlightened. Oh, good. Thank you. All right. That's our talk for today. Blessings, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you soon. Thank you all. Have a beautiful day.